I just wanted to say that no matter what you do in retail, like no other career, you can do anything you want.
Yeah.
When you understand another human's problem in a way that you can understand it, you immediately, barriers come down, you have empathy because you get it. And before that, you were making assumptions. And once you stop making assumptions and you understand challenges, the methodology for coming together, there's a million more touch points just automatically. So many different environments, so many different cultures I've worked in around the world with multiple brands and with multiple regions, okay? You just can't forget that people are people, regardless of their culture, where they came from, who they are. They are still human beings with concerns, worries, fears, loves, hates, etc. Find your advocates in an organization, in an industry, anywhere, and help them be your evangelist, okay? And have them help you. All right, so here's a couple things that I learned, and this has served me really well, and I wish everybody understood it. Comes down to people.
Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Retail Razor Retail Transformers podcast, the latest podcast in the fast-growing Retail Razor podcast network. I'm Ricardo Belmar.
And I'm Casey Golden. Welcome Retail Razor fans to the show where we cut through the clutter and bring you the people driving real transformation in retail, the change makers, the innovators, and the disruptors, reshaping the industry from the inside out.
Yes, this is the podcast where we dive into candid conversations with the people reshaping the world of commerce. The crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, all the round pegs in the square holes, and the bold thinkers that see things differently and drive the industry forward. If you're passionate about innovation, leadership, and the future of commerce, this is the podcast for you.
We're coming off a killer start to the series with April Sobral. Last episode with her leadership and positive mindset approach that's transforming how retailers lead their business.
Yeah, 100%. And what an amazing way to start the series with so much positivity and mentorship. I think our Retail Razor fans will find this is an incredible follow-up to that with this episode's guest, Vicki Cantrell, currently the CEO and co-founder of Vendors in Partnership and the VIP Awards. But as we'll hear, she has an amazing history in retail that's earned her the nickname, the fairy godmother of retail.
Honestly, when we talk about retail transformers, Vicki is just the best example that 100% reflects everything the title Retail Transformers stands for. She's a disruptor, a change maker, a mentor, a bold thinker and leader. She's been the COO at Tory Burch, CIO at Giorgio Armani, VP of IT at Gucci Group, head of franchise relations and IT at Party City, and led IT teams at brands like Today's Man.
Not to mention many years at the National Retail Federation, NRF, as their SVP of Community and the executive director for shop.org during the very formative years of e-commerce. We're sure to get more details on that experience, I'm sure.
So if we sum up what makes Vicki a retail transformer, it has to be her ability to build community, not just between brand and consumer, but also between brand and the technology vendor side of the industry, something that so many people in this industry often ignore.
That's right. And speaking as someone who's always been on that tech side of the retail business, I know directly the kind of amazing impact Vicki has had in building those relationships and community and causing retailers to really view their tech supplier relationships in a completely new way.
Absolutely. Now, before we dive into our candid conversation with Vicki, let's take a quick moment to make one simple ask of our audience. Please consider giving us a 5-star rating and review. Drop a quick review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or Good Pods if you like the show. We really appreciate your support.
That's right. And we would be completely remiss if we didn't drop a quick plug for the other shows in the Retail Razor podcast network. Hopefully you're already subscribed to our main show, the Retail Razor Show. But if not, don't worry, we'll forgive you. Just be sure when you're done listening to this show, and of course, hit that subscribe button, you also go and subscribe to the Retail Razor Show. You will be so glad you did.
And then don't stop. Go check out Blades to Greatness Show for the best leadership skills and career tips you could ever ask for in retail. Straight from the best leaders in retail.
And then go give Data Blades a listen or watch, where you'll get deep practical insights into customer experience tactics that you can use based on real world research at the point of sale. If you're a data junkie, of course, like Casey here, then you absolutely want to check out Data Blades. We really appreciate your support.
100%. So with that, I think we're ready to dive into our conversation with Vicki, right?
Yes, let's jump in and learn exactly why this episode's retail transformer, Vicki Cantrell, is more than meets the eye.
I knew I made a mistake leaving that open for you.
I told you I'd take on the challenge of getting it in every episode. Just wait until next time. Welcome, Vicki, to the Retail Transformers podcast. I am so excited to have you on this new show. Honestly, if there is anyone in retail that deserves our label as a retail transformer, driving change, disrupting the industry, it has to be you.
And of course, you're no stranger to the Retail Razor. Having you on before, but those visits were really about retail ROI and our special event recap episodes for NRF and Shop Talk. So we've never really had a chance to sit down and talk to you about your journey in retail and all the incredible work that you do now.
Well, I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. I love this idea of the transformers because, look, retail transforms every day.
That's right. Especially today, right?
Especially today. And so I just love being a part of that. So I really appreciate you reaching out and having me on. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, it is awesome to have you here. And although we kind of expect often on this show that our audience probably knows a few things or two about who our guest is, just by the nature of the show. But let's start just by having you give us a little bit about your background and how you started in retail.
Oh my gosh, how I started in retail? Yeah, I actually started way back in wrapping gifts in a gift shop.
Wow.
Okay. That was even before JCPenney, where it was one of those where Christmas help and turned into becoming a buyer. And then actually started me on the technology journey that I ended up in by working as a buyer for pennies, if you can possibly imagine that. And this was in the old days when this was before they were in Texas, okay, when the buying office was in New York. And I worked in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, which was a large and important store for JCPenney. And I actually got started on my technology career because we were putting in computer registers. And,
Right.
Right. And so I had an affinity for it and ended up being one of the ones that helped train 150 associates on the computer, because it was a big change.
Right.
And I thought, this is kind of fun. And believe it or not, that is how I grew into technology and into technology roles and a CIO. Started implementing a computer point of sale.
Well, wow, because that honestly, right, that was probably one of the first big transformations just in retail, right? Going to that kind of new point of sale technology, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you've really been there in every early transformation.
I know how to run a switchboard like nobody's business. I was the plug and all of that, and also the old registers and the knuckle busters. Okay. Yeah. I've been around a while, but I'm always transforming myself. So
I love that. So much of the magic in retail being transformed are these operators that are typically behind the scenes. So I think that understanding how everybody kind of got in the business, I just find it incredibly inspiring, not just for myself, but I feel like as our audience gets more and more younger, it doesn't always start at the top.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to know that any walk through the doors of retail can take you in a zillion different directions.
Right. And let me just kind of talk about that for a minute, because if you think about my journey without going through the whole journey, because it's a long journey, obviously. But here's what I can say about it is that, I mean, literally, I started as Christmas help and I grew inside of Pennies and I was a buyer and then, and did other things while I was there. And through my career, I mean, when you think that I actually became a CIO without growing up in the technology space of coding and or computer science and or whatever. And I knew what I was doing, but think of the growth that it took between there and there. And when I worked for Today's Man, I was in IT and I got to Today's Man in an IT role because I had helped implement warehousing systems, automated warehousing systems, and they needed that. And so they hired me. And so I was in IT. But while I was there, I actually became a merchant and a planner and went over and worked in merchandising and created open to buy for them and ending up helping them through Arthur. I know I'm really dating myself, but I don't care anymore about dating myself.
Right. So, it's still like widely used.
So I was always I would be in the business and then I would be in technology. And so there were really two types of CIOs, one that came up through the business and understood the technology and one that came up through technology and understood the business. And so it's just that my life and being in luxury to the luxury brands, I was heavily involved in CRM and customer experience and all of that. Plus the way I say is I never had to stay in my lane. In any place I worked, anything I've done, I've never had to stay in the title lane and always had broad responsibility across the business. And when you're in technology, you understand all of the parts of the business. And when I was at Gucci and we ended up doing 10 acquisitions while I was there of other brands, that's what really gave me my operational chops. Okay. And understanding warehousing and distribution and supply chain and all of that and all the different brands across all the different countries in the world.
It's a lot of integration.
Yeah. A ton of integration. So I just wanted to say that no matter what you do in retail, like no other career, you can do anything you want.
Yeah.
And there is every position inside retail. There's attorneys and creatives and there's technology.
You're right. And that's something that so many people don't normally think about. People who are in this industry don't normally expect or think that all of these things exist in a retail business.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I think it's important. You've been called the fairy godmother of retail, a title that speaks to your incredible talent for bringing retailers and solution providers together to build these transparent and empathetic and lasting partnerships. I love that. But I have to ask, what is the story behind this magical nickname? Who crowned you with it? And what does it mean to you?
I did not crown myself, but I so appreciate being crowned by it because it felt so right. So we were at a VIP Connect, and we'll talk a little bit about what happens at a VIP Connect, but it's very much collaborative vendors and retailers doing a deep dive. And Casey Sherritt was my retail presenter that day in that particular, and when she was getting up and talking about something, and she said, and Vicki, who's the fairy godmother of retail, and I let her go on. And man, it hit me like a lightning bolt because it hit me like a lightning bolt for a couple of reasons. Because it felt right, because the other title that I have been given, not given as a title, but that people mention, I never liked, which was, oh yeah, she knows everybody. She's the queen of retail. Yes. It's like, no, please don't call me that. There's a million queens of retail out there. I am not it. Please don't do that. And so it's like, ugh. When she said that, I thought, I love to just Sprinkle.
Yeah. Sprinkle art show through the fairy.
So I have to thank Casey for that. But then it was many others that said that you own that, get that on, put that up.
Yeah.
So that's how it happened. I have to credit Casey with it, but I've thought a little bit about it. And okay, so what does a fairy godmother do? All right. A fairy godmother shows up when they're most needed. Okay. When somebody is having real difficulty or despair. Okay. They can grant access to something that is unreachable. All right. Not grant access. I hope to be able to help people do something that right now feels unreachable. Transformation. Okay. That fairy godmother transformed Cinderella.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But then Cinderella had to do something about that. Okay.
It show up.
It's right. It means that I get to empower people who have potential that they don't know they have. All right. So I love that. And then it's really about disappearing, shining the light on those things and lift others into that spotlight. And so I like to think that I guide with heart and strategy. So I happen to really appreciate the title and I love it.
Awesome.
Awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome.
I think it is a great description.
Yeah, it absolutely fits. No doubt about that. I guess, so I'm going to take that and give you another question sort of related to that, because you have been a champion of this entire idea of vendors as true partners with retailers. Yeah. And that's, I'm not going to put words in your mouth because I'll let you talk about it, but I know that's part of what led to creating vendors in partnership and filling a need to really get that idea of vendors as partners out there and not being just suppliers. And we're, of course, familiar with your VIP awards, and we obviously want to hear more about that. But then we also want our audience to learn more about what you're doing with VIP Connect. You mentioned it quickly earlier, and that's really a unique concept, I think, of how you're bringing this community together. And now that you're doing that work, we want to understand, what led you to that. Obviously tell us what the purpose and objective behind VIP Connect is, and just what inspires you to keep doing that and alongside the VIP awards.
Well, that's a lot of questions.
I know.
Okay. So let's see. How should I start? Why did I do this? It is, first of all, as a practitioner for many, many, many years, a buyer of technology, a seller of technology. Okay. Because I've done that too. Actually, I don't consider myself a seller of technology. I consider myself as a transformation person who helps suppliers and or people who have something important to sell to solve business problems rather than sell technology. But that's a different story. Okay. But so as a practitioner, I was always partner oriented. Okay. Look, when you've been at it as long as I have, and you have purchased countless solutions across multiple brands, you realize one thing: software is software. Okay, software is always, everything's going to go wrong. So no, some things will go wrong. Not everything goes wrong. Some things
hopefully
will
not
go
everything.
wrong. Okay, and when it goes wrong, because that's not the part, it's either is or isn't, it will. Who has your back?
Yeah.
I have to connect with someone. And so I was always partner oriented as a practitioner and as a buyer. So it's just actually comes naturally for me. So, and working at NRF was a different way of seeing how retailers, I had communities that had vendors and retailers together in it, and I had communities that had retailers only in it. And so you understand that relationship. And anyway, when I left Aptos, I guess it's like, what do I want to do? And to me, everything changes in retail and everybody's got everything. We just keep going forward and we keep getting better and better and better. But what has not gotten better is the relationship between the vendors and retailers. It's still the haves and have-nots. It's still that not good feeling. And I saw and I've had the good fortune of working deeply inside a vendor, understanding all of the mechanics from beginning to end, how they work, okay? And also in a retailer. And when I see the power on both sides, and I understand the difference now that vendors are, and this is not a bad thing, vendors are a sales organization. Their structure is a sales organization, which is a very different set of mechanics than a retail organization.
Yeah.
Yes, they both sell. Yes, they both have customers, but the mechanics to it are completely different. The measurements along the way, completely different. And we said, it's like, how the hell do we do any business at all? I mean, really, the processes are very different.
I mean, it's hard
And-
enough to get two salespeople to work together, let alone like two sales divisions and like cultures to have to work together.
Right,
That's
right.
really, I don't see
Yeah.
that as a recipe for success either.
Yeah. So
It's almost counterintuitive.
when I see that, and we'll talk about what it means to build a community and what the important pieces are, I have always believed and seen it. This is the truth. This is not just my opinion. When you understand another human's problem in a way that you can understand it, you immediately, barriers come down, you have empathy because you get it. And before that, you were making assumptions. And once you stop making assumptions and you understand challenges, the methodology for coming together, there's a million more touch points just automatically. So the goal is understand each other. This is the whole goal. If you just shine a light on what really happens behind the scenes on both sides, honest to God, this problem would be solved.
Yeah.
So it is something that we now really speak about as investigative empathy. Okay.
Okay.
Everybody talks about empathy. It's critical. It's all I talk about. But investigative empathy is not just having somebody tell you, okay, is really understanding what's behind that and why and what is that driver. Because when you're investigating, you also can upset some things that should be upset.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I understand now why you do it this way. But is that right?
Right. Is it the right way?
Can that be changed?
Yeah.
Because here's what I would do if you could change that. I would then come this far, okay, and help you. So it's a deeper level of empathy. There's understanding, which then says, okay, if you change this, I can sign up to change this. And it's really changing things. The other thing is, you know, we all know buzzwords, right? And what is becoming a buzzword, as much as it breaks my heart, is partnership. And my whole thing is partnership and vendors in partnership. And I talk about the partnership awards, and there are best awards of the VIP awards. And they're critically important, but I don't want that to just become a buzzword and people not to understand the importance of it,
What it means.
what it really means. So what we talk about now instead of partnership is an expedition mindset. And what I mean by that is when you are on an expedition, okay, think about all of the amazing accomplishments that have happened in this world, the North Pole and space and all the exploration that's happened that has science and everything. You have always relied on someone else. Not any one person has made a major contribution by themselves.
Right.
And so this expedition mindset enables us to think of this way as sometimes you're the one that has to carry the other person, and sometimes you're the one that needs to be carried. And if we think of that as partnership, okay, because you are carrying the load at different times, it's a much smarter way to think about it. And the other aspect of expeditions is you always leave something behind for the person that's coming after you. And so that's how I like to think about it even more than partnership.
It's a nice way.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. It's more about the contribution you're making at that point, within both within and external to the partnership, right?
Yeah.
I
Look,
think that we have had this lack traditionally, this lack of, I guess you can say that it's empathy, but it's this value of the brand, between technology and between the brand, coming from the brand and moving to technology. I haven't been on the brand side for 10 years, but when I say we, I mean me as the brand. I still associate myself on their best interests and what it means for them and how to make it easier for them, and still associate myself on that side because, and I haven't even been on that side for a very long time. And I think that there is this level of partnership that we need through these retail transformations where you can have deep relationships and have this, we're going to be together for a while, years. And technology is going to change every 14 days. And you have to know, who am I going on this journey with? What do they want me to win? And when things do hit the fan, are these the people that are going to carry some of the weight with me and help me through it and respond? Because that's not always the case. So I think that the way that you amplify it is so important to the industry to be able to move forward together and to build more of those bridges.
So that's a two-part process. Okay. It's one thing to understand. And now that can lead me into talking about how this happened in VIP Awards and VIP Connect is, and let's, put a pin in that. Okay. Yeah, I understand it. And then what? Okay. That is belief, not the end. Okay.
Right.
So anyway, the VIP Awards, I mean, some of it is just pragmatic. When I think about the value that a solution provider can bring, that they don't have enough ways to talk about it. Okay. There just were no solution provider awards in the industry. They're all retailer awards.
Right.
Okay. And even though I wanted to talk about partnership and all of that, this was an important aspect for finding a way to highlight. And I always say that I created the awards to be a carrot, at the end of a stick, which means that, so there's two types of awards. The solution part, I have the best, whatever, payment, etc. But there's also the partnership category, which is more about how they do business rather than what they sell. Okay. That's Pepsi, retailer's favorite, best longstanding partnership, partner of the year. Those are recognitions for, regardless of what your service is, whether it be consulting or, system integrator or software or whatever. It's kind of how you do business.
Yeah.
And,
it's the relationship part.
The relationship part. And so that was always to keep the DNA of what vendors and partnership is. Those are a category of awards that are important. And we do have some retailer awards, but they are the retailer awards that highlight partnership. Okay. So Retail Person of the Year partner is that retailer person who embodies everything we're talking about. They treat their partners this way. This is how they do business. They tell their teams how to do business with vendors. They just have a different mindset. And I'm excited because we are probably going to be expanding awards for retailers. And I don't mean necessarily highlighting just retailers. They will come alongside with the retailer, how do I say this, that demonstrates the value of the partnership in the success. Okay. Because I think that's really what we're trying to do. One that we are doing for sure that will be new this year. I'm actually really excited about this. It's called the Bridge Builder Award. And it is, so those nominees will be either a retailer, a current retailer, or a current solution provider. And the reason it could be either is because this award is for a person who has in fact worked on both sides of the table.
Oh, interesting.
Who has been a retailer in seat, who has been a vendor in seat. So they could be at either one at this.
Right.
Okay. I'm one of those weirdos, although I will not be nominated. I'm not eligible for the award, but I think the more we highlight that, because By the way, that's happening a lot.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the nominations will be a pool of book retailers and vendor people, and we'll see who wins on the night. But I want to keep finding a way to highlight this connectivity. So I'm excited about that. So, and by the way, nominations open August 20th, and the VIP awards this year are
Okay.
Friday night, January 9th, 2026.
Okay.
So more to come on that. But the awards started to build. People understand what it is now. It has traction. It's great. It's going to continue. And I love everything about it. Every year we do it better. It's great. It's the most fun event of that season.
Yeah.
I think it's
not-
wonderful.
it
It's
is
one
wonderful,
of my
yeah.
favorite events. And I like the emphasis on bringing these two people into the same room for an evening.
Right.
And it's not like a pay to play.
It's a relationship event.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
100% across the board, and everybody has so much fun. So
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
it's wonderful. But a year or two ago, I said, I want to get back to why I started Vendors and Partners. Yes, the awards took up all my time. I'm
Yeah.
a startup like anybody else,
Right.
and it sucks you in as a founder and all that stuff. But I want to get back to why I created Vendors and Partnership, getting them equally at the table in the room. Seek to understand, but then what do we do about it?
Right.
Okay. And so the Connect events that I've done now, 3 of them, have been, okay, I'm biased, magical. Okay. It's a small group. It's an equal number of vendors and retailers in the room, executive level people in seat and understanding, that have done this. And I say they're equal in the room, and they are. And we do things like, well, I don't want to go through the whole day, but just so you have an understanding, there is a very deep dive presentation from a retailer that covers everything, how they make decisions, who they partner with internally, externally, what their decision process is, when they budget, just all the things that a vendor should know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is a mystery. It should not be a
It
mystery.
shouldn't be a mystery. Yeah.
Right.
Forget about that.
Right.
Yeah.
And how, and then some deeper dives into, here's what ROI means to us. Here's how we measure ROI. Here's the 5 kinds of ROI. Here's how our CFO thinks about it, our CEO, our CI, just some really deep dive stuff. And then, okay, now we're ready to go shopping. Here's what we do. Here's where we look. Here's who we call. Here's how we make those decisions. Here's when price is important to us. Here's when here's how I interact with. Okay. And then the vendor does the same thing. Okay. Here's top of funnel. Here's what happens when you click on a website. Here's how you're scored. Here's how we manage you through. Here's what happens in the sales process. Here's how we form our targets. Here's what a deal desk is. Here's when your brand is important to us. All right. This, again, there have been on both sides so many aha moments you can't even imagine.
Right.
Okay. Shock, like things everybody thinks the other person knew this.
Right. Yeah.
And are shocked that they didn't know this. Basically, let's go back to empathy. This is the learning part. This is the understanding part. Okay. And it's magical. It's super interactive, 1 million questions, everybody. But one of the things I want to stress about this is I will find a way, no matter how I can just keep beating this drum, everyone is equal in the room. And they don't come in as equal vendors and equal retailers, because I'm going to stop using that too. Everyone in that room is, in fact, an industry expert. They come in as an industry expert. They have worked at multiple companies. They have possibly worked across the table, like we talked about. They have long careers in retail. Not a single one is new to retail. Okay. They've seen it all. Every one of them has value as a retail expert, and they come in and the sharing that comes from that is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is how it's starting to change. Now we're coming up with, here's the things that we can start to work on. What would you have to tweak? Here's the 2 things I could change if you do these things. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're starting to get some real education around some of the thornier problems that cause friction in a relationship, even as simple as everybody hates RFPs. And there's a completely different way to calculate ROI on the vendor side as there
Right.
is on the retailer side.
Yeah.
Okay. When you understand how a vendor looks at marketing and how a retailer looks at marketing, they couldn't be more different. And
Yeah.
and everyone, this is one of my favorite like learnings from this was, so a retailer sitting there thinking that the vendor has all the money in the world, buckets of money, okay? Big booths at NRF or any trade show, going out to dinner, flying anytime you need them to come and see you, to do this, to do that, whining and dining, etc. If you think about how a retailer measures a marketing budget and what percentage it is of the total and how they measure all the different all that stuff, right? When you understand that a vendor literally overspends on marketing, okay, like more than 100% of the revenue, okay, which is mind-blowing, all right?
Yeah.
And that to do this, okay, to appear this way, where the retailer thinks they have buckets of money and why are they holding my feet to the fire on price, okay, when they have all this money anyway, when you really understand that what they're showing to the outside world to cut through the damn noise, okay, which is an unfair disadvantage, okay, is that they could literally be 6 months away from laying off 6 people at any given time.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Break down the barriers, understand each other's challenges. And then when you do, figure out how to work better together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah. It is really amazing when people on both sides learn that things don't actually work they think that does on the other side. That there are that the expectations are not what you thought they were of how things actually work.
Yeah. There's some big thorny problems in the industry that I can't solve.
No, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
but this is how we start. I think I'd like to see a lot more retail operators move to the tech side over the next 5-10 years. I'd love to see more of that happen and that transition happen. And I think it will just continue to bring us all closer together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So from Tory Burch to Party City, you've worked across luxury, mass market, and nonprofits like Retail ROI. What's one universal lesson about leadership or customer connection that applies to any retail segment that you take away from these experiences?
One, huh?
Just
Okay, just one. It has legs, okay. It has a few offshoots.
okay.
But it all comes down to people, okay?
Yeah.
So many different environments, so many different cultures I've worked in around the world with multiple brands and multiple regions, okay? You just can't forget that people are people, regardless of their culture, where they came from, who they are. They are still human beings with concerns, worries, fears, loves, hates, etc. Okay. And when you realize, because you have all these, look, we're a judgy society in general, right? And when you realize that regardless of how someone shows up, all right, they are human beings at the core with the same fears, worries, aspirations, goals, etc., it becomes so apparent that we're all the same. We are all the same. Okay. And so that's a key piece, especially as I've worked across so many cultures. Okay. That it's something that always strikes me. When you think about a leadership skill, I would say what is applied across the board. I don't care where I've been. I don't care where I've been.
Yeah.
Change management, the criticality of change management is 100% across the board the most important thing, because you are always advocating to get people to do something. Change, leave, grow,
Yeah.
shrink, new systems, new products, new relationships. And there's so much change in retail at every moment. I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago about AI specifically, and I don't want to talk about the tariffs of the AI and the technology and all of that. Okay, I want to talk about how do you bring your employees, how do you change manage your employees through this? What do they say? What are they allowed to say? What are they not allowed to say? What does this mean to them, to their life, to their job? They might have to leave. They might have to change.
I think that's a really good point.
So critical. I was trying to change how every single council inside the NRF thought how they worked. I was trying to say each one of them how they would, because they all worked completely differently when I got. So I ended up having to change how they all worked, keeping the core of what they needed, but changing how they did it. If you don't think this is a 24/7 thing in the industry, in every role, under every circumstance, and I think that we don't understand the criticality of it and give it as much attention as it needs, because change management is constant.
Yeah.
You have to keep at it.
We've seen this with the rise of technology and the amount of change in mindset and leadership adaptation that's had to happen to embrace technology on the retail side. And now with AI, I'm like, that the AI is like the easy part.
Yeah.
All of the change leadership and the mindset and how these organizations are going to have to think and plan together is going to be the hardest part of AI adoption.
Yeah.
Because it shifts the whole entire focus from the org to the customer.
Yep.
Yeah.
So think about the people and what you have to do to continually think about what they need or what you need, or how to communicate the absolute change management. The other thing that I think is critical from a leadership standpoint is, look, there's some people that are natural change agents, and they will always suffer because people don't like change. And you're going to be
people
a
want to
problem
resist. Yeah.
with someone at some point, higher, lower, whatever, it's going to happen to you that somebody doesn't want to hear about change. Change is super uncomfortable and it's really hard. So one thing that I've always learned is that never try to you can't change anything on your own.
No.
Find your advocates.
Right.
Find your advocates in an organization, in an industry, anywhere, and help them be your evangelist. Okay. And help and have them help you. Nobody can do this alone. So that's the other thing I would say is find your peeps.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you mentioned as an example there how you looked at the different community groups within the NRF while you were there. I want to dig a little deeper into that time when you were at NRF, because I guess that was your, at least by title, right? That was your role, right? Is building these communities and shaping them into what the industry needed. And then you were also leading shop.org at the time. So I'd really love to know, what are the takeaways? If you were to, maybe instead of one, it's three this time. If there were three things you took away for that time at NRF, maybe that's a little easier, but what are the main things that you think really had an impact and that you take away from that experience, both from the communities and shop.org?
Yeah. Look, I've loved everything I've done. I have been so incredibly fortunate and had amazing roles. This was another one. It was, I loved what I did there. And it's interesting because I went from full-on retail, executive retail for years and years into a trade association. Okay. By the way, one I was completely familiar with. I was on the CIO council for ages at many different retailers and got so much value. So I understood it. Okay. But you're literally going into a different career. In a sense.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
My role as executive director of shop.org and head of communities was, in fact, the community role of running those business groups. Okay.
Mhm.
Because I came from the business and I was one of those, or many of those business groups. So that was my role. My role got much bigger while I was there. Not only did I run the communities, I was also responsible for all the show content,
Mm.
which made complete sense because the people that I ran, okay,
Mhm.
as a group, are the ones that put on the content
Right.
and know we need to hear.
Mhm.
Then I also ran the industry level side of the research. Okay, not the consumer research, but the how
Okay.
do these people do their jobs research?
Yeah.
What does the CIO need research? What's the state of retailing online research?
Mhm.
You know, with Forrester that we did for years. So I did content and I did communities and I did research. And so it ended up kind of getting bigger and bigger. All right. So here's a couple things that I learned. And this has served me really well. And I wish everybody understood it. Comes down to people.
Mhm.
Each of those communities were very, very different. And you wouldn't think that. All right. But and it really sheds a light on why and how vendors and retailers work together. Okay. Let's kind of go through that for a minute. So the CIO Council, all right, the CIOs are the ones that have always made the decisions on technology in retail, all right,
Mhm.
and so they have this kind of hands-off mentality that we have in retail comes from that. Please gift me the ability to talk to you, retailer. Okay. You know, that it comes from technologists and too many people clamoring at them, that kind of hands-off mentality. Okay. The loss prevention people are incredibly risk averse, as
Mhm.
they are supposed to be. All of these people are supposed to be the way they are. Okay.
Yeah.
So what they need is very different than what a CIO needs. They are
Mhm.
going to be completely risk averse. So you have to think about that.
Mhm.
The the marketers, back in the old days, there were two types of marketers. One that came up through advertising, one that came
Mhm.
up through digital. Okay. You want to
Right.
talk about the different way of looking at the world.
Mhm.
Important. The
Yeah.
marketers came from a DNA of I'm not giving away my secrets.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right. Right.
So, in a similar way to the CIO, I'm not going to tell you this. I'm going to only
Right.
give you what you need to give me what I want.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And the digital people are the most open because
Right.
if you think about the beginning of the internet, this is a scenario where they had no budget. They were told to go figure out the internet.
Mhm.
Who are they going to rely on? Each other. The
Yeah.
vendors and retailers creating this had to rely on each other. So they naturally have in their DNA a collaborative thing.
Mhm.
Okay. So understanding all of that is the lessons from it are that people desperately need peers and deserve peers that completely understand their own challenges. The magic of what
Mm.
happens inside those rooms of just the CIO council, just the CMOs, just the digital is magic. It's therapy. There's no competition because it doesn't matter what you're selling.
Mhm.
You understand that I have the same problem that you just went through or did, or I'm not as far behind as I thought I was. It's magic. So you have to give people their own group to understand and
Mm.
it recognize individual needs and personalities. I consider, and when all is said and done, one of my crown, and the other one is how people can work together. All right. This is when that started. Each council was separate. And I would watch, you remember when vendors started to be able to sell right to the marketer instead of the
Mhm.
CIO?
Right. Yep.
Remember that?
Yep. I
And the
remember.
whole industry went, oh my God, the
It's like a mini
market
panic attack.
technology is
Yeah.
So here I am running these different groups, okay, and I'm watching them go back to their homes and go into their silos, and I'm hearing each of their challenges. I sit in on every meeting. I understand their challenges. And so honestly, one of my biggest achievements was I did an event called the All Councils Forum,
Mhm.
where I put them all in the room together for 2 days.
Wow.
And they ended up understanding, guess what?
Each other?
Other's powers.
Yeah.
And so really, I sound like a broken record.
Very much like, it's like, you're a pain in the ass. And she's like, you're frustrating.
You're too
Yes.
slow.
You're right. You're too slow.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And why does this take so long?
Mhm.
And then when somebody in digital understands why it takes so long, they're like,
Oh,
so you're not the.
It's not magic.
yeah. You're not just here to say no all the time.
I almost said you're not just the.
Uh-huh.
I won't swear. I won't swear.
Okay. I dropped a bomb on a podcast yesterday, so we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
Like, are you going to edit that?
Yeah. So anyway, it's part of the genesis of what I do.
Yeah.
It's just more of the same. If I had to sum up my entire career in one thing, no matter what I've done, it's community builder.
Yeah.
In some way.
Yeah.
Get people their own community. And that's a little one or a big one or a broad one or a group one or a single one, whatever.
Yeah. Talking about single ones, much of what we talked about relates to mentorship in the sense that all of these learnings that you've shared, I'm sure anyone listening is thinking to themselves, if only someone had helped me see that sooner. Everyone can really benefit from that mentorship and that community. What are your thoughts on mentorship in retail? More on that, like one-on-one. And how have you been involved in mentorship?
Done a lot of that because I think it's absolutely critical. And we have a lot of, and I don't want to just focus on women, okay? But we have a lot of things in the industry that are just so mentorship oriented about making other people successful in some way, like, retail women in tech and the women in retail and just helping people get together, share their challenges, etc., becomes a sense of mentorship in and of itself. Specifically for mentorship, I've done some very robust, specific programs that I absolutely love. There's a group in Atlanta here called Path Builders, and they have different levels. And the one that I was involved is a year-long program, extremely robust. Companies send their people to it, okay? It is focused on women, but there are many, we talk about allyship. Many of the mentors are men also and women people. And the level that I was participating in as a volunteer mentor was something called Achieva, which is women who are in senior roles with a P&L and a big staff and all of that. And they're in that right at that place where they're not quite ready or could be more ready or could gain additional skills to get to that CEO level. Okay. And so just participating for a few years in that program and seeing my mentors, mentees, like be able to grow into those roles has been incredibly rewarding with a super great, robust program behind it. So that was amazing. Like even my learnings. Mentors always get as much out of mentoring as the mentee. Always, if not more.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
I do it a lot. I try to have time for anybody who needs to talk to me, I'll talk to them.
Yeah.
My problem is I don't know how to say no, which is a real problem in my schedule. But anyway, I'm all for it. And I think it's incredibly important because you know what? It's hard to ask.
Yeah.
It is very hard to ask. I think that was one of a big learning being a founder was asking for help.
Yeah. You know what I would say about this too, because sometimes mentorship sounds daunting. Like I don't want to ask somebody. It sounds daunting. Right. Don't think of it as an individual thing. Think about it in a much broader way. So I want to be mentored. I'm going to go hang with people who understand my challenges. Join a council. Okay. If you're an NRF member, join the council that is for your role because you will get so much out of that. It's mentorship.
Right.
Or find ways, think of it in a broader term and don't let it be.
Yeah. I think sometimes a lot of people don't think of mentorship as coming from peers. in a sense.
Oh
When
my
you
gosh.
mentioned the councils, right? I'm just immediately thinking there's so much you learn from each other
Oh.
in those communities because you realize people are having the same challenges you have,
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
feel, you often fall into that trap where you think that I must be the only one having this problem. How do I solve
my
it?
God.
And you don't want to, you feel like you can't approach your peers because you're afraid they're going to look at you and say, why are you even having that problem? And odds are they had the same problem already.
Yeah. I mean, I think Rethink Retail was really a game changer for me, especially like I didn't have it during my first startup or in the beginning of my career. I had a couple superheroes that just kept on like lugging me over the walls, you know, and answering the phone when it rang, no matter what. And I do like what I've had today in this mentorship and relationships, like being able to meet everyone. I would have never met you, Vicki, had it not been for like Rethink Retail or even Ricardo. You know, like there's so many people in the industry that you think they're inaccessible. You don't know how to reach out to them. Everybody's so busy.
Right.
And a lot of times you're not used to people wanting to help or meet. Everybody's got a gazillion things on their plate. And I think that's the one thing is really Rethink Retail kind of shined a light on. There's time and there's interest. Meet everyone and build a relationship and help. And I think that it really is one of those perspectives that changed because I didn't always have that previously. And so now I think people at brands should know how amazing this is because they too are on an island that's like typically only their logo.
Right.
And being able to cross the street, like my dinner tables are insane. I always say we could start a company based off of everybody who's sitting at the table because it's like everybody has a job somewhere on one of the sides. I'm like, this dinner table could literally be a company in like 2 months. We could beat a market.
That is 100% true. Every single one of my friends, I am just sitting here thinking about what you're saying. Every single one of my friends is a mentor to me.
Yeah.
Like the people that I have trusted through this whole process who know what I'm about and have helped me. Believe me, I am not done this alone. You know, so the people that reach out on my behalf and do all of that, they're all my mentors. And I love what you said about the dinner table. I have this one group of friends. It's like 8 of us who like get together, like, 2 times a year. And it's not even about retail or business. Like, okay, when you're buying a car, one of them knows everything about cars and one of them knows that one's a builder and one's and we always say that between the 6 or 8 of us, we literally could solve every problem in the world.
Exactly.
That's right.
100%. I see it. I mean, I think it's really nice. Keeping those brand connections and then I've met so many people and I just think it's really important for any of our listeners and audience, reach out.
Yeah.
And I think you are worthy. You are experienced enough.
Yeah.
Don't be intimidated. Just pick up, send the message, reach out, ask for introductions. Everybody, I can be a testament to everybody is amazing and so incredibly welcoming.
Yeah, I agree.
So being at that, like retail is at a crossroads with AI and humans. I think this is going to be the topic of discussion for the rest of eternity, well beyond our umbrella drinks sitting on an island at some point. Right?
Yeah.
Between personalization versus privacy, efficiency versus human touch, as a retail leader, where do you see the biggest opportunities and pitfalls for vendors getting it right for retail? And I say that because the past 6 months, I find that everyone in retail in a room and everyone in tech / VC tech are having completely different conversations and they're counterintuitive. They do not support each other. And I'm like, I'm building this because this is what we all agree on. And you're saying that this is like stupid it doesn't matter because everything's over here. I'm like, yeah, no, we got fax machines, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fax
Yeah.
machines and spreadsheets.
The noise always moves way faster than the reality.
That's right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's the challenge right there.
Right there.
We can end the podcast.
That's right.
Okay.
Mic drop.
Yeah. I have a fax machine, bro. Pretty much.
Like, I'm still getting there's still orders popping in here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what would be a recommendation to everybody listening on the tech side right now on how can they best support retail? Personally, my experience is like we're having two different conversations, and I'm like, I thought we were friends again, and now we're not friends. We're so far apart. But maybe your experience is very different, and being in that position where you are building those bridges in the middle. What is the conversation they should be having right now? Or what do you see the biggest opportunity vendors have to support retail for this AI transformation?
There's a lot of pieces to that. And some of it, when things are in such flux, go back to stop and take a minute and say, A, what can I control? Okay. Instead of reacting to the flux. And so what can you control? You can control that you still need to work together in the reality of today's situation. Okay. One of the things that I'll give you an example. One of the things that I've done recently, as you know, is I'm working with Litmus 7 as a community officer because it's the same thing as what I do for VIP and, helping their customers understand they're part of the bigger community, et cetera. But why did I do this? Because I saw a real difference in how they work. Okay. And it's something that it should be done with everybody. Okay. Meaning they are there. And when they see an issue, okay, or when an issue is brought to them or they see it, it's just dealt with zero escalation. There's no, this isn't in scope, or I need to go back. Let's have a discussion. I'll come back to you with a solution. It's very action oriented. I'm just using that as an example because we're in a moment of you have to kind of stop doing the way things we used to do. Okay. And by the way, how can you help yourself? One of the big questions that came out of Connect in March, the one we did in March, was how can vendors use AI to market better, to find their right fit better, to change, like how everybody thinks of retailers using AI and vendors have to embed it.
Yeah.
Wait, we have a serious marketing problem that no longer works in the industry. Okay. We have a serious selection and noise problem that no longer works in the industry. How could we be using AI to solve these things instead of talking about I embedded AI? So I'm not giving you a very concrete answer, but these are important aspects of know that the world is changing. Change the way that you're used to doing business that is more action oriented, utilizing the tools that you can in a way that helps yourself as much as somebody else.
Yeah.
And just help and react and take away the barriers. They're going to get leapfrogged if the barriers still exist. And so, now there's tremendous opportunity here. Okay. Like, what do I think AI is going to help? Okay. Is, when you think about privacy concerns and stuff like that, we're going so fast that it's going to be a way that it's going to go from these silos of LLMs. Okay. Already changing into a much more overarching neural across the board AI, okay, like neural intelligence that is much more broad, which means, by the way, that as those capabilities exist, each individual will be able to own their own data better. So there's so many awesome things that are coming. But by the way, that old retailer, the consumer's still buying from us, it might come at us from a very different path.
Yeah.
Retailer, okay,
Right.
it's not through your website, it's not whatever.
Right.
You still have a connection. You're still helping the world and helping people live their lives and all of that. Let's find a way, okay, to stop doing things the way we were doing them wherever we possibly can.
Yeah. Well, that's a good way to put it. Good way to put it.
That's a really great way to kind of stick a pin in it. Vicki, this has been such an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for sitting down with us and sharing your experiences and your mentorship. I know I've learned a lot today. I know that our listeners and viewers have filled an entire notebook with insights and points. I have no doubt that this episode will hit the rewind button on several occasions.
Yeah, I think we definitely have a full understanding of what earned you the name of the fairy godmother of retail. I think there's no one more deserving of that title than you, Vicki. Yeah. I have to thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here, and thanks for letting me go on and on. I wish you would cut me off sooner. Gosh.
We could go on for hours here. I think there's so much to talk about.
Something it's hard to,
That's so true.
Pithy talking points instead of going on and on. But, it is what it is. I'm sorry.
No.
It is what it is, and I'd say that's a wrap.
It is.
Great. Thanks, guys.
If you enjoyed our show, we have a simple ask. Please consider giving us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Good Pods. Remember to smash that subscribe button in your favorite podcast player and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a minute. I'm Casey Golden.
Please follow us and share your feedback at Retail Razor on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Threads, and Instagram. Subscribe to our Substack newsletter to preview the best highlights from each episode right in your email inbox. Visit our website at retailrazor.com for transcripts and more info about each episode and our guests. Retail Transformers is part of the Retail Razor Podcast Network. I'm Ricardo Belmar.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, stay sharp, be bold, and transform retail. This is the Retail Razor Retail Transformers.